Well, welcome back to our World Cancer Day discussion. And now we ask, what role do workplace managers play in the recovery process of employees affected by cancer? I'm joined in studio by Kgomotso Mopalami, who is the South African Board for People Practices, and she'll be unpacking that very same role. Kgomotso, thanks a lot for joining us on Newsnight this evening.
Thank you very much.
Now, we're talking a little bit off air about issues around employment and employees and employers supporting employees in an event that that individual has got cancer. But what happens in a situation, first of all, employees feeling comfortable enough to even tell the employers that they've got cancer? Are even employees comfortable enough to even have that kind of a conversation?
Yeah. You know what? According to the research, the employees are not comfortable to talk about that, and there is a huge problem. That is when now HR should come in to equip themselves with the necessary information and the skills to know how can they deal with cancer. There is a lot of stigma because people don't know how exactly to handle such situations. How can they talk to the people who are going through cancer? And it's a huge challenge.
Yeah, and I'm imagining it for an individual who has to go through treatment. I mean, we saw Temba here, he's involved with the Defense Force, and you have to take time off work. Now, currently, sick leave is about 3 to 4 days that you're allowed to take time off work. When you're going through a chemotherapy, there's also the effects of chemotherapy, right? So the vomiting, they just numerous, the exhaustion, etc. that happens, which means you're going to need about 2 weeks just to recover, for your body to recuperate. But your contract does not necessarily cover that. So then how then do you even, how do you even mitigate that? How even do you even begin having that conversation?
To start with, 3 days for a cancer patient is not enough. Going through chemo, going through that treatment and through the journey of recovery. That's why the employer must have to start with the strategy to deal with such situations and to also have cancer policy. As much as more was done, and sufficiently so, with HIV/AIDS, the same needs to be done with cancer. They need to develop and implement the policies on chronic diseases management, including cancer itself, because that will guide them on how to deal with such situations. Because you cannot treat the cancer patient the same as someone who is off work because of flu. 3 days they can be home and recover and come back to work. But somebody who goes through chemotherapy, they need more days, they need sufficient time to be at home. That is why HR should know what to do. For example, review their duties, because you will find that even the work that they are expected to do, they are not able to perform.
So, I probably have the one side of me, and allow me to play devil's advocate, the employer's side, and they're listening to this and thinking, but this is sounding like a costly exercise. If you're a type of employer who's all about bottom line, I'm sure they're thinking, but hold on, but if I'm in HR and I'm about to hire somebody, if I'm about to hire Kgomotso discloses that actually I'm currently going through chemotherapy, I have been diagnosed with cancer, immediately in my head, and this must sound insensitive, but unfortunately it's realistic. It's going to be an expensive exercise because number one, you need to be off work. Number two, you can't perform certain duties that would be required for you to perform. Number three, you're going to have issues of exhaustion. Number four, you're going to want half days. So then how then do you start even reaching out to that type of employer who's thinking in that manner?
That's why HR should be there to assist the employer. That's why we need to have the strategy in place. And what I can tell you is that the HR strategy should be aligned with the organizational strategy, so that every issue, every challenge that is in the workplace will talk to the strategy of an organization, and the employer will know how better to deal with that. And those policies, as I've already mentioned, they will assist a great deal. So in essence, HR practitioners, they should foster good practices, because we talk here about HR practices. They should cultivate the right attitude on how to deal with cancer. And as
Are they
I
equipped
mentioned,
enough for that? Because we're talking about chronic diseases now. So we've moved over. So we've mastered how to tackle it when it comes to the HIV and AIDS conversations. And I must, take that moment and actually congratulate South Africa for being able to do that effectively. But on the other side, now we're dealing with some of them are lifestyle-based illnesses, some of them are communicable diseases or non-communicable diseases, some of them are chronic diseases. So how then are they equipped? The HR system currently and our pool of HR practitioners, are they equipped enough to even deal and handle situations around cancer patients?
I can say they are equipped. However, if they are ignorant, then they won't know that the information is there. For example, as SABPP, we have the HR standards. And those standards and practice, we have the competency model, we have practice standards that guide HR on how to go about everything in the organization. So every HR in every organization should adhere to such standards, because those are the guidelines. If they don't know how to go about the policies, the strategy, how to go about matters concerning such non-communicable diseases in the organization, the practice standards as well as the HR standards, they will guide them. That's why the HR practitioners in every organization should know those HR standards.
What rights govern and what legal rights govern the employee, or in this case the patient who's currently been diagnosed with cancer and is undergoing chemotherapy? Because I can imagine that individual is, number one, afraid to lose their job, afraid to be declared redundant, afraid to be called in and being given a written warning because they've been missing out on work and deadlines simply because they've been going through chemotherapy. So what legal rights govern that individual?
Okay. We have the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, and Section 23 of the Constitution clearly stipulates that every employee has the right to fair labor practices. And the question is that the reality in South Africa? And I can say to you, no, because we go to a lot of organizations outside there as SABPP, and many of them don't even have the policy, the cancer policy in place. So I even came across some women who have cancer and they were forced to resign. That is an unfair labor practice.
Can you sue them?
You can. You can. If you know your rights, you can, because that is an unfair labor practice. Some of them, they resign, they go home because HR didn't even know, or the employer didn't even know how to handle this. And also, the Bill of Rights, one of its values is clearly stated that human dignity should be instilled. So cancer patients should be treated with dignity and with respect. And also, the working environment that they are in should be safe for them. Their wellness should be taken into consideration. It should not be a hazardous working environment that they find themselves in. So the Occupational Health and Safety Act protects them against that.
Kgomotso, thanks a lot for joining us this evening on Newsnet. I know that it's a conversation that we have extensively, but hopefully ignorance has been broken this evening as a result of you being here tonight.
I hope so. Thanks very much.
Thanks.